Recently, I started having some very physically sick symptoms and some nervous system dysregulation. And I pinned it down to it was the dynamics in my marriage, my relationship. And I could understand my nervous system challenges because, as Mike, my husband, has shared in a previous episode, you can look at episode 108, there's been some challenges around some benign addictions but addiction tendencies that have caused my a dysregulation of my nervous system. But my blood tests were getting very strange too. I was having blood work that showed things like high iron levels, and my eyes were really bothering me, and my gums felt inflamed. It was very strange. But what I was sensing, and this is the wild thing, is I was sensing my husband's shame that he was living with. And I remember telling him before we got married that tend to be very sensitive and I will express his stuff sometimes even before he's aware of it. And so I will manifest, unfortunately, my husband's challenges. And that's why I was a little bit nervous about getting married because I know that's about myself and not something I love, but that's part of me. And so I will often know his crap sometimes before he will, and it will hurt me, and especially if he keeps something from me. Well, now he believes me as he's seen it in action. So there was something from Mike's childhood that he felt a lot of shame about, and he had made a promise to himself that he was not going to tell me. And it almost cost our marriage. So unfortunately, Mike and I will talk more about this at another time. And today I'm going to focus on the cost of shame. So let us talk about shame. Shame is not just something that we've done wrong. Shame is something that we've attributed that makes us wrong, unlovable, unworthy, or anything like that. It creates this distance from people, and rather than guilt, thinking that yes, we've done something wrong, shame is different than that. It's very personal and very much we are the problem. There's something innately wrong about us, and it's very destructive. So let me just be clear. When he did share his childhood story, it didn't really faze me much. To me, it wasn't a big deal. But the cost of it really was. The cost on his body, the cost on our marriage was. And that's why I'm going to share more about this. So shame is one of the main tactics of the enemy. So we embrace a lie, that what we've done is so bad and unforgivable. Then we keep it a secret, and that creates shame. And then it just starts manifesting in unhealthy ways in our relationships, within ourselves, and everything else. If you're not comfortable with the idea that we have an enemy that wants to kill and steal and destroy our happiness and our joy and our connection with God, you can think of it as in like shame is a low vibration tactic that just creates more low vibration and attracts more of it and just keeps going as it stays in the dark. All the same is the reaction. The reaction of that is it creates distance with God and ourselves. We can disconnect from ourselves perfectly well. Very toxic, but we all do it at some degree. And it's very destructive to relationships. I think about one of the first examples in the Bible of shame was the example of Adam and Eve. And they were given all the wonderful things, but told to stay away from the one thing, the one tree. The first, they did it, ate from the tree. And the shame that they felt made them want to hide. And that is a very key distinction with shame, is it makes us want to hide. It makes us want to hide from people, relationships, ourselves, all of that. And so that's a key. And by keeping it in the dark, then it can manifest, it can perpetuate. And that's what makes it like a growing cancer and very toxic and destructive. Things in the light, in our natural world, light gives us life. And it's the same with shame. Keeping it in the dark causes destruction. Bringing it into the light is what frees us. The longer we embrace the shame, the more damage it will do to our spirits, our bodies, and our minds. And shame really destroys and damages the sensitive spirit part of us. And that's important to know because I think sometimes, I think one of the lies of shame is that there's something wrong with us and all of that. But you know what? If we didn't care about people and our actions, we wouldn't ever feel shame. So the fact that all of us have struggled and are aware of shame and have felt it shows us that we actually do care. And that's an important thing. So what is this shame solution? And that's huge. So there's 4 parts: accept, share, embrace, and compassion. So the first part is accept what is. And that's huge because a lot of the things we feel shame about are things that have happened in our past. They're already done. Nothing's going to change it. It is done. So accepting what is key. I hope you've been loving my podcast and growing 1% at a time in our community. And if you've noticed that you want to get somewhere quicker, faster, or you need some personalized attention, then reach out to me because I do life coaching that involves both the conscious and the subconscious. And that is a way to get somewhere faster, to have personalized care. So reach out to me, sign up for a 15-minute free consultation to see if it's right for you, and we'll see if we can set something up. Make it a great day. We would have chosen differently, most likely, all of us, because otherwise we wouldn't feel shame. And, it's a chance for us to give grace to our younger version, because honestly, he was doing the best she could do. I mean, a lot of times we're in these situations and it's like, wow, that was horrible. But then you look at what our younger person was going through, and you understand that, wow, there's more to this. That's why I always like to keep in mind, literally, that our mind is like a school bus and we're in the driver's seat, but sometimes we're not. And we've got all of our younger versions in the bus with us. And we cannot keep any of our younger versions in a box or just put duct tape around their mouths and just not accept them. So accepting what is accepting the past. And that's huge. And the second part is sharing. There's something beautiful about being able to share with somebody that can hold space, whether that's a counselor or a trusted friend. That is huge. So there's 2 times in my life that I felt intense shame. The first time is interesting. I can't even remember what it was about, but I was around age 13 and I had met a new friend and I was dealing with shame for something I had done. It's funny that I can't even remember what it is. But I just remember the relief I felt when I talked to her and shared it with her. And she was like, oh, okay. And there, it just wasn't even a big deal. The second time was kind of similar in the sense that there was something I felt shame about. And in this case, it was after I had gotten out of the psych ward the first time. So if you remember my story, or if you haven't heard my story, after being married 5 years in a destructive relationship, having a baby, undiagnosed Hashimoto's, trying to get away, long story short, I ended up in a psych ward and was misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I felt like such shame with the whole scenario because, what I felt was a destructive situation, it had been flipped over to be like I was the problem and I was bipolar. And I just chose, I needed to, if this was true, which it wasn't, but at the time I didn't know that for quite a few years, just needed to embrace that. If it was true, then I needed to accept it. And there was shame in that I had to go work through. And so I remember a close friend of mine that I've been close friends for 25 years, I actually shared with her that I had been in the psych ward and diagnosed with bipolar, and she didn't even care. She was so thoughtful. She was like, oh, my dad struggled with, and I can't even remember what he struggled with, but it was a mental disorder. And she just embraced me for what is, but just exposing my shame, just letting it into the light was huge. And so that's what sharing does, is it lets it into the light and exposes it, because the key part of shame is keeping it in the dark and letting it grow and fester. So it gets rid of it. And a very important thing for us to all know is that we are not alone in the things that we have gone through. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is talking about how the temptations or the challenges we happen are common to man. And one of the lies that we get with shame is you're the only one that's ever experienced it. You're the worst, da-da-da-da. But the truth is you are not alone. And multiple people have actually probably gone through what you've gone through. And so just the express of sharing it with a safe person is huge, because what we realize is it's all common to man, and we all have our shit show, and that is part of life. So that's the second part, is sharing it in key. And it could even be with a trusted therapist. That might be a first place to start if you need to. And there's easy ways to, with online therapy, all sorts of ways to start to get to work through that. But that makes a huge difference. The third part, and this is really key too, is embracing God's forgiveness and our forgiveness in love. And like I said, we're all shit shows. And the truth is like in Colossians 2, verse 13 in the Bible, it says, "For God had made us alive in Christ. He forgave all of our sins." This is huge within, the Christian theology, in the sense that forgiveness of sins is what creates freedom and peace. And we cannot be at peace with God and ourselves and others without embracing that forgiveness. And it's huge. So that's the third part, is embracing God's forgiveness and love in our own. I mean, if God can forgive us and love us, we better work to be able to forgive and love ourselves too, because that's what we're called to do. And if we're having to make ourselves perfect in order to do that, that's wrong, because that's very conditional love, and we're really taught to love ourselves unconditionally, but with a plan in mind to help ourselves, not to just remain in our mess and roll around in the mud. And then the fourth part is compassion. And this is one of the ways we really do love ourselves, is to have compassion on our younger versions of us. Let all the kids on the school bus have a place and a voice. And it could be the younger version of you may have struggled with being overweight or anorexic, or maybe you hurt somebody on purpose, or maybe you hurt somebody on accident. Maybe you used to cut. Maybe you slept around. Maybe you cheated on a boyfriend. Maybe you cheated on your husband. Maybe you did something sexually you're not proud of. Maybe you stole money. Maybe you lied. And I have to say, the things that happen are common to man, and we are human. And not to justify anything that we've done, but embrace that we've all struggled. We've all done crap. And don't let shame hold any of us back from being our best version of us. And shame will do that. It's a destroyer. And a big key of this, and this is kind of my disclaimer, is when we share, and there may be some consequences for what we've done, because maybe we've done some wrongdoing and we have to just embrace the consequences. But there is freedom with consequences, and it can be life-giving, versus shame is torture and destruction. I remember hearing an example of this woman on her deathbed, and she wasn't that old, and she was dying, and they didn't even really know why, but she was just about ready to, doctors had all deemed that she's going to die in a few days, and she met with her pastor. And her pastor was talking to her and, kind of doing the last rites, or just, whatever she needed. Come to find out, she had had an affair, and she had not told anybody. So she confessed her sin, just told the pastor, "I have done this. I was wrong." And that shame had eaten her to the point of death. And once she shared it, confessed it, she actually recovered, and she was perfectly well. That is the destructive power of shame, is it can affect us mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, psychologically, in so many ways. I really like this verse in the Bible. It's Psalms 35:41. It says, "I prayed to the Lord and he answered me," which, just so you know, is a given. He will answer you. "He freed me from all of my fears. Those who look on him for help will be radiant with joy. No shadow of shame will darken their faces." And I just think that's beautiful, because shame does. It darkens our soul. It darkens our eyes, which is the light of our souls. It darkens our faces and is a destroyer. And it's very difficult to have joy while we're holding on to shame. So if you want more joy in your life, start diffusing the shame and getting rid of it. So in a later episode, I will have Mike on the show, because he'll talk about how this huge weight that he didn't even know he was wearing, like a heavy coat, was removed once he embraced that freedom and exposed the shame and embraced the freedom of God's forgiveness. And that is huge. And if there's any shame that you're dealing with in your life, do these steps. First of all, consciously accept what is. Our past is our past. The second one is find somebody trusted to share with. Expose it to the light. Give it light. The third is embrace God's forgiveness and love. And the fourth is about loving ourselves and giving ourselves compassion. And those are huge. So I want you to just take a deep breath in. I always like to have a deep breath in and a belly breath out. And a deep breath in. And breathe out slowly. And I want to see if there's anything that comes to mind that's getting marked in your mind that this is something of an area of shame that needs to be dealt with. And do those steps and be freer 1% at a time and share your light. Make it a great day.